For his next trick, the masked magician will shoot an arrow straight through his assistant's body, without drawing even a trace of blood. He blindfolds the assistant in order to spare her the horror of looking down the barrel of a loaded gun. The magician moves across the stage and is handed a specially designed rifle. He checks the barrel, then asks for the ammunition he'll need to discharge his weapon. The gun is cocked and ready. Now for the arrow. Since it will be traveling at a high rate of speed, he ties a ribbon around it so you can follow its path through our assistant's body and into the target. He loads the arrow into the barrel of the gun. Now he's ready to fire. He gets down on one knee, takes aim, bullseye. You can see that the ribbon has traveled straight through our assistant's stomach and into the target. That's gotta hurt. Let's watch it again. The arrow passes through her body and into the center of the bullseye. But where's the blood? And what is the secret? In order to understand how this complicated illusion is achieved, let's check out each of the elements. First, the gun. While it is real, it never actually fires. The shell is a blank that merely creates a puff of smoke when the trigger is pulled. Next, the arrow. Although it's loaded into the gun, it never leaves the barrel. The end of the ribbon is tied to a thin piece of fishing line that is virtually invisible to the naked eye. The fishing line runs behind the magician's arm and body to keep it hidden from view. The ribbon is loosely wrapped around the arrow so it will easily slip off during the trick. When the illusion begins, the fishing line is already strung along a path that runs from the ribbon across the floor and into a metal tube concealed beneath our assistant's dress. The fishing line enters the tube, goes around her body, out the back of the tube, and into a hole in the center of the target. See our magical stagehand behind the target? He's there for a reason. We'll tell you why in a minute. Meanwhile, the fishing line continues out the back of the target and is attached to a sandbag hanging 30 feet above the warehouse floor. At the moment the gun is discharged, the sandbag is released, and its weight pulls the fishing line and ribbon straight through our assistant. Let's take another look. The magician fires. The ribbon is pulled from the gun, through the tube that wraps around the assistant, and into a hole in the target. I know what you're thinking. If the arrow never leaves the gun, then how does it hit the target? Here's the secret. A second arrow is actually concealed within this vertical black stripe. Behind the target, our stagehand waits to release the arrow on cue. See the arrow dropping into position? Seems complicated, but it's really pretty simple once you know the secrets. Now, for a trick that threatens to reveal the masked magician's true identity. Here's the setup. One of his assistants plays the role of the executioner. The magician must escape from the bag before the executioner removes his mask and reveals his identity to the entire world. Could this be the trick that ruins the masked magician's career? First, the magician's hands are bound. Then the executioner blindfolds him and places him into the bag. Next, he is positioned behind a three-sided enclosure. The bag is pulled tight and locked. The doors are closed, and the clasps are tied. Now the executioner puts on her hood. She moves all the way around the enclosure. Even though dressed as the executioner, she's still required to dance. Just part of the job. The executioner opens the doors and reveals that the magician is still trapped inside. Will he manage to escape before being unmasked? The doors are closed and secured. The executioner moves around the enclosure one more time. Then she opens the doors again. Time to pull off the magician's mask. But wait, that's the executioner. Then who's under the hood? You guessed it, the masked magician. What a surprise. How did he do it? First of all, when the trick begins, a second assistant is already hiding behind the enclosure as it is rolled onto the stage. The assistant is also dressed in an executioner's robe and hood. But that's not all that's hidden behind the enclosure. There's another executioner's robe and hood, as well as a second magician's mask hanging on the back door. You'll find out why in a minute. Out front, the executioner puts on her hood and begins to dance around back. That's where the first switch happens. The executioner removes her hood, while the second assistant takes her place and dances around to the front. Meanwhile, the magician is still locked inside. He unhooks a secret link in his chains so he can free himself from the bag and trade places with the executioner. The executioner grabs the second magician's mask and through a secret back door switches places with the magician. Once inside, the executioner puts on the magician's mask. While all this is happening, the second assistant is out front creating a diversion with the dagger. This gives the executioner enough time to finish putting on the magician's mask and get inside the bag. When the doors are open for the first time, the audience has no idea that a switch has been made. They don't realize that the original executioner is now in the bag pretending to be the magician, while the second assistant is now disguised as the executioner. Meanwhile, the magician is hiding behind the enclosure, putting on the black robe and hood so he will look like the executioner. Now the second assistant moves behind the enclosure and hands the dagger to the magician. The magician picks up where the second assistant left off and continues around to the front. He opens the doors. The audience thinks it's our magician who's about to be unmasked, but we know better. The mask is removed, revealing the original executioner inside the bag. And with his identity still a secret, it's none other than the masked magician. You've seen magicians make doves magically appear. That's easy. Now you're going to see them disappear. The magician opens a special box. These are real doves. Nice birdie. He loads the first one into the box, then closes the lid. Now for the second dove. Easy there, little fella. In you go. A little hocus pocus, and suddenly, the doves are gone. How did he do it? You're probably thinking the doves are up his sleeve. Well, they're not. From this angle, we can see that the doves really are loaded into the box. Here's the first one. Now the second. Don't send us any letters. They're not being hurt. The lid is secured, and now for the trick. The lid has a secret compartment where the doves are hidden. When the magician hands the lid to his assistant, she makes sure to conceal the secret compartment. See? There they are. Our two feathered friends perfectly comfortable inside the lid. Not very magical, is it? Now the masked magician will perform an illusion known as the box of pain. Only a true professional should attempt a dangerous trick like this. He opens the box to prove that it is completely empty. This is the unlucky assistant who must endure the box of pain. He makes her kneel down and puts her head inside the box, where it remains for the entire trick. She has no idea what's in store for her. The box is closed, and her wrists are handcuffed together. Now for the sword. It is a real sword. In fact, it's so sharp it appears to glide straight through the box and into our assistant's head. Quite unpleasant. Now for the daggers. You can almost feel the assistant's pain as the first one is plunged into the box. Since the box is about the size of her head, the natural conclusion is that she's being impaled. She clenches her fist as another dagger is driven into the box. What did she do to deserve this? I can assure you that the assistant's head is inside the box and not behind it. It seems impossible that she's still alive, but she's still moving. That's a relief. Another dagger cuts through the box. Watch as she flinches in pain when the blade is inserted. It hurts just to look at it. Now the box is riddled with blades. But that doesn't stop our magician. There's always room for one more. The final blade is inserted. You might want to cover your eyes for the next part. It won't be pretty. But wait a minute. Her head is gone. A bizarre decapitation? Or just another trick from the masked magician? While it appears that there is no way to survive the box of pain, there actually is a logical explanation. As you can see, the box is much deeper than it appears from the front. This gives the magician plenty of room to insert the blades both in front of and behind our assistant's head. But how did he make it appear that our assistant had been decapitated? The answer is simple. Mirrors. While the magician distracts you with the handcuffs, his other assistants are actually sliding the mirrors into place on the top of the box. So instead of seeing our assistant's head, we are now seeing reflections of the inside walls of the box. From this angle, we can see the mirrors slide into place as our assistant shifts her head backward. The sword also plays an important role in this trick. It covers the seam between the two mirrors, creating the illusion that you are seeing all the way to the back of the box. As for the blades, they are carefully inserted into the box so they surround our assistant's head without cutting into her. The blades come so close that they actually pass through her hair. The doors are opened, and the optical illusion works to perfection. Pretty tricky, huh? Most tricks aren't very dangerous, but this one really is. The masked magician will now risk his life to perform Houdini's famous water torture escape. He inspects the torture chamber to make sure that it is airtight. There are more than 500 gallons of water sealed inside. The lid of the chamber is lifted, and the magician begins mentally preparing for this dangerous trick. His wrists are handcuffed by one of his assistants. Now his feet are shackled inside the lid. Once he is tightly secured, the crane hoists him into the air. Timing is crucial in a trick like this. Blood is rapidly rushing to the magician's head, increasing the odds that he will lose consciousness while underwater. He is trying to keep calm and lower his heart rate so he can hold his breath as long as possible. Again, this is a dangerous trick that requires tremendous physical skill. He is put into position. He takes one final breath and gives the signal that he is ready. Into the water he goes. Since there is no extra room in the chamber, water begins to pour out onto the floor. The assistants secure the lid and lock it closed. Now the magician has been underwater for almost 30 seconds. The curtain comes up. How long can he hold his breath? Hopefully, long enough. We move completely around the chamber to prove that he has not merely slipped out the back. He hasn't. The curtain is now partially raised. The magician is still inside, struggling to escape. Will he make it? The curtain goes down again. Time is running out. The tension is mounting. It's going to take some real magic to get out of this one. The curtain goes up. But where is our magician? There he is. A little out of breath, but none the worse for wear. How did he do it? The key to this daring escape is in the lid of the chamber. You can see that the magician's feet are shackled and that the lid is locked down tight. You can also see that the locks are real. But what you don't see is the assistant sliding the pins out of the hinges of the lid. So even with the locks on, the lid is easily opened. When the curtain is raised, the magician uses a handle hidden inside the lid to pull himself up. He pops through the unlocked lid and takes a much-needed breath. He drops down again, and the lid closes back into place. He dives to the bottom of the chamber and begins to struggle just in time to show the audience that he is still underwater. When the curtain goes down again, he removes the handcuffs, which are specially rigged for just such a trick. See how quickly he breaks free? Once loose from the handcuffs, he uses the handle to pull himself up and completely out of the torture chamber. He closes the lid to make it appear as if it is still locked tight. While the audience is wondering if the masked magician is still alive, he is merely waiting for his cue. The curtain goes up, and Houdini couldn't have done it any better.
Now an illusion that is definitely a work of art. The trick begins with a masked magician painting a portrait of the woman of his dreams. But he's not happy with his first draft, so he decides to try again. He sets his work aside and puts up a fresh canvas. He clamps the canvas to the easel. Now he picks up his magical palette. He begins to paint his dream girl. Looks as if she has a large oval head. Beauty is definitely in the eye of the beholder. Once the magician finishes his painting, he will try to breathe life into his creation. Now he paints her long flowing hair. Since every beautiful woman likes flowers, he paints her a delicate rose. He figures his dream girl also likes jewels, so he paints her a magical necklace. Ah, she's a blue-eyed beauty. Her eyes match the necklace. He waves his hand to conjure up his magical powers. He reaches through the canvas and produces a red rose. He does the same with the necklace, and out it comes, a beautiful string of jewels. One more gesture, a kiss for good luck, and she comes to life, the woman of his dreams. If only it were that simple. Let's find out how he did it. First of all, when the trick begins, the assistant is already hiding behind the second canvas. Watch again and see if you can tell how it's done. Have you figured it out yet? As the magician moves the second canvas into position, he keeps it low to the ground so you can't see his assistant's feet underneath. Here's how it looks from behind. He puts the first canvas on the floor, and she moves behind it. This is to keep her out of the audience's line of sight. When he places the second canvas onto the easel, it allows her just enough time to climb onto the ledge. The easel looks like wood, but it's actually made of solid metal. As for the rose, she already had it tucked inside her shirt when the trick began. The necklace was taped to the back of the easel. So when the magician reaches inside the painting, she simply hands him the flower. The same is true for the necklace. Now he needs to call on all of his magical powers. The assistant waits for her cue, then pops through the center of the canvas. And the masked magician has done it again. Picasso couldn't have done it any better.
We begin with one of the most dangerous illusions ever attempted, the bed of spikes. This is a world-class magician performing these perilous tricks. Please do not attempt any of tonight's illusions at home. Check out the spikes. They are 18 inches long and made of steel. The top platform weighs more than 500 pounds, and when it comes crashing down, it is capable of driving the sharpened spikes straight through a slab of solid cement. Imagine what that would do to our magician if this weren't just a trick. He gives the cue, and out come his lovely assistants. This illusion dates all the way back to the 19th century. It was originally called the Death of Cora. These are not the masked magician's regular assistants, so we can show you their faces without fear of revealing his true identity. He lies down on the bed of spikes. I don't think he's going to get much sleep. His assistants tie him down. They use thick leather straps to make sure his hands and feet are tightly secured. He struggles to break free, but can't. Now a black curtain is drawn. The curtain is supposed to spare the audience the gruesome sight of our magician being impaled by the deadly spikes. Notice that you can see all the way underneath the bed of spikes. This is to prove that the magician didn't just sneak out the back, or else you'd see his feet. Everything is set. One of the assistants pulls on a rope and the spikes come plunging down. Sounds like they found their mark. But the show just started, so you know we wouldn't let that happen. How did the magician disappear just a split second before getting shish kebabbed by the spikes? Here are the secrets. In order for the illusion to work, the audience must believe that the spikes are real. I can tell you for a fact that they are. And if you think the spikes simply retract into the top platform, you're wrong. That's not how the trick is done. Once his assistants have strapped him down and the curtain is drawn, the magician must begin his escape. He only has a small area in which to hide to avoid being skewered by the spikes. But first things first. The buckles and straps are real, so it looks like he's tied down. But he's not. It's really just Velcro. That's how he breaks free. Now the magician must quickly roll off the platform and onto the ledge in order to avoid being impaled. The assistant pulls on the rope, and the spikes come crashing down, just inches away from him. He hurries back into position. The curtain is parted. And there he is, without a scratch on him. Now the masked magician will perform an illusion known as the stretch. He examines the huge cabinet that has supposedly been designed to stretch a human body. What will they think of next? An assistant comes out to lend a hand with this bizarre illusion. The magician unlocks the front doors. Then he opens the back panels so you can see all the way through the cabinet. This is to show you that there are no secret compartments or hiding places inside. The doors are closed and the magician inspects the stretching device. Now a stool is brought out. Here comes the assistant that's about to be stretched. She's in a pretty good mood for someone who's going to be pulled from limb to limb. She is now locked inside the contraption. Brave girl. Once the doors are closed, her hands and feet are put into position. The magician tickles them to convince you that they are real. Now he tugs on a rope, and the stretch begins. It appears as if her arms and legs are being pulled right out of their sockets. She must have a high threshold of pain. The magician slides her head to the top of the cabinet. Looks like she's going to need a good chiropractor. Her head is forced to the bottom. Then it's brought back up. Now for a little Linda Blair exorcist action. A perfect 360. It doesn't seem humanly possible. Her hands and feet are put back into their original position. Then her restraints are removed. The doors are opened, and there she is, in perfect shape. Now for the secrets. The magician spends a great deal of time trying to convince you that the cabinet is empty, but it isn't. When the trick begins, two assistants are already hidden inside. Before the front doors are open, the assistants climb out the back and stand on tiny ledges, so you won't be able to see their feet underneath the cabinet. Then just before the back doors are opened, they climb around to the side. Those decorative tassels and pegs are actually handles to help the assistants maneuver around on the narrow ledge. You can't see them on the side of the cabinet because the front doors are now open and blocking your view. Once the back doors are closed, the assistants hide again behind the cabinet. When the assistant that's about to be stretched gets inside, so do the other assistants. It's their hands and feet that you see during the trick. They wear the same fingernail polish and stockings of the assistant being stretched to make the illusion seem even more convincing. Watch as they put their hands and feet into the holes and prepare for the stretch. While it looks like the magician is pulling apart his assistant, we can see that the other two girls are merely sliding their hands and feet in different directions. So how does the assistant's head get to the top of the cabinet? It's pretty simple. She's standing on the stool. Again, more tickling. As the assistant moves her head lower, the stool is removed and she drops to her knees in order to put her head on the bottom of the cabinet. Not the most comfortable position in the world. As for her head spinning around, this actually takes even more physical dexterity. You need a very flexible assistant to pull off a trick like this. With their limbs back in place, the other assistants remove their hands and feet and escape out the back of the cabinet. The doors are opened, and the masked magician has done it again.